When I was 17, I just knew that I was dying, but no one could tell me why. I was absolutely terrified, and I was more alone than I've ever felt. This is the story of how a diagnosis changed my life. I want to start with a gentle warning. This video does discuss sensitive topics like mental health struggles and suicidal thoughts, and if you're not in the place to hear this today, I completely understand. The last thing I want to do is cause anyone any type of distress. So I've always been afraid, not of anything in particular, but everything in general. And I would have these episodes where my heart would beat so fast, I was sure it was a heart attack. My chest would physically hurt. I would break into a sweat. I couldn't breathe. I felt fuzzy and disconnected, like my brain had left my body. I would vomit. I was scared. I was so scared. I was so scared I was going to pass out because everything was spinning. There was this overwhelming fear. That's all I remember, just fear. I would sob, not just cry. It was those heavy, deep sobs that come deep from within your belly, the kind where you're full of snot and you just can't breathe. I would grasp for things, like reach for things, because I thought that I was falling. I lived in constant fear. If I wasn't having an episode, I was worried about when the next one would come. The fear was so consuming that whenever I went somewhere, I always made sure that I knew where the exits were and that I had a good route to them. My mind always worked out every doom and gloom scenario that was even the remotest of possibilities, and I would spin myself up into a frenzy. I stopped doing things because I was afraid of dying. God, so afraid of dying. I just knew that I was going to die and I was going to go to hell because I was crazy. I look back on that time and I truly thought that I was dying every single day of my life. So back then, there wasn't a word for what I had. Anxiety wasn't a term that people used. Mental health and self-care were completely unknown terms. This was the late 1980s when mental health awareness was still in its infancy. Anxiety and depression were very misunderstood, and negative perceptions prevented many from seeking help. The lack of effective mental health treatments and the infancy of mental health awareness made it challenging for me to receive proper care. The mental health care system was underdeveloped with fewer resources and less research compared to what we have today. People simply didn't know any better, and this made me feel so isolated. During that time, I was convinced that there was no solution to my suffering. Well, except for one. There was one solution. So there was a time when I called 911 again and ended up in the hospital again. I remember lying in the hospital bed and the room was like overly bright and white and sterile. I just remember that room being so bright. Of course, once again, all my tests and blood work and x-rays and everything they did came back normal. I remember those times always thinking or hoping that it was cancer or something that they could find that would explain why my body was betraying me. I remember laying in that bed just screaming internally, why am I here? There's obviously something so wrong with me that no one knows what it is. I'm dying and no one cares. No one can help. I'm going crazy. I vowed that this would be my last time going to the hospital, and I started making my plan to stop my pain right there in that bright-ass hospital room. I wanted to be done. At the time, for me, it was all too much. I vividly remember laying in that hospital bed crying and plotting my demise when the doctor came in, and he stood at the foot of my bed, and he started like rubbing my feet through the blanket in a very soothing and comforting and concerned way. And I just looked at him, and he took a deep breath and said, I know you're scared. And everything else that came out of his mouth was absolutely compassionate. He was kind. He was gentle. I remember his face and his white coat so clearly. I only wish I could remember his name because I love to thank him for what he did for me that day. He told me that what I was feeling wasn't just in my head. As he explained anxiety disorder and depression to me, I was absolutely flabbergasted. Everything he described matched what I was experiencing to the letter. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. I wasn't dying. I had anxiety. I was depressed. Oh, so I was crazy. Great. I remember being relieved that I knew what was wrong with me, but then I was kind of let down at the same time. Anxiety disorder. It's something that sounded so innocuous, like it was no big deal. It needs a more dramatic name, one that encapsulates that overwhelming fear of dread and death. And people use the term depression and sadness interchangeably, which annoys the heck out of me now. You know, you could have a bad day and come home and be like, oh no, I'm so depressed. And the way the word was used was a temporary feeling that could be fixed with a cheesecake and a chitty chat. So when I talked about being depressed, people were always saying, well, just cheer up, and other helpful tropes. It was and still is in some cases so difficult for people to understand the pain and despair. Because I was in college at the time of this diagnosis, I went to a counselor at the college clinic. She was very unsure about what to do with me, but she did seem very committed to helping me. Now remember, this was pre-internet, so the research that she did was actually consulting with colleagues. I believe that she actually went to the hospital and spoke with my doctor. Eventually, she put me on Prozac, and this was my first medication to treat my mental health issues. I was absolutely terrified, and I was embarrassed. I hid it from everybody. I didn't want to take it. The medicine made me feel weird at first. I hated it. I hated having to rely on it. I had a hard time remembering to take it. It was just a lot for my 17-year-old brain to take in and accept. I remember it gave me horrible heartburn. It made me feel very disconnected from everything around me, like I was walking and living in a dream. Those first few weeks were absolutely awful. It was just fuzzy. Looking back, it was so fuzzy. I honestly don't know how I got through that time. I really don't. I really have no idea how I got through it. Looking back, everything seems blurred, but I know I went to class. I know I did the stuff and things. I mean, I don't think I did well, but I showed up. I just wanted to be normal. That was my constant thought, over and over, playing again and again like a broken record in my head. I just want to be normal. Please. I remember one weekend my parents came up and I was struggling. I was very tearful. And even now I can feel that pain that was in my chest. It was horrible. It's just hollow, empty pain that aches with every breath. And I kept crying and I kept telling my dad, I just want to be normal. I hate my life. Please, I just want to be normal. Why can't I be normal? And he said to me, well, Sheila, this is your normal. Everyone has a different one. So those words have stuck with me my entire life, that this is my normal. I took my medication diligently. I went to the counselor and slowly I began to feel better. It was hard. It was shameful. I felt so much shame. So much shame. People use the word crazy so loosely. And I didn't really have anyone on my side because of the negative stigma. As I started feeling better on the meds, I fell into a common trap, right? I was feeling better. I was done. Woo-hoo-hoo! I am finished. Crisis averted. I thought I didn't need the meds anymore, so I stopped taking them because I had won, right? I had kicked anxiety and depression's ass. But soon the anxiety and depression came back and I found myself in a very dark place again. It was awful. I started drinking a lot. I was drunk every single day. I was drunk every single night. I went through thousands of dollars in my college savings, my bank account spent on alcohol. I all but failed out. I actually did fail one class. Everything was just a mess. I got to a point where I was planning my suicide again. I mean, I actually had it planned down to the letter. I knew how I was going to do it. I knew where I was going to do it. I knew when I was going to do it. I fantasized about it. I took everyone into consideration, though. I wouldn't inconvenience anyone or cause anyone any trauma. We didn't have hotlines or anything like that back then. I knew I needed help. I really didn't want to die, but I was hurting so much. I couldn't stop crying. I couldn't stop gasping for air. I can't explain this pain in my chest. It was like nothing and everything all at once. The pain took my breath away and made me double over in anguish. Anguish. Anguish is a good word. That's a good word. I had completely isolated myself for fear of being a burden to people. I didn't want anyone to see me. I have absolutely no idea what made me tell someone that that's how I'm feeling, but I did. I remember that day in my dorm room. It was my roommate that I was talking to, and I remember just saying very detached, very matter of fact, hey, just FYI, if something happens to me, can you make sure that you tell my teachers that I won't be in class? Also, let my parents know and tell my sister that she can have my clothes. I don't know if I can get a refund for the rest of the semester, but if you can, just give it to my parents. Just real matter of fact, like it was no big deal. I truly at that time didn't think I'd be missed. I had never felt like more of a burden in my entire life. And I just figured that I was better off gone because all I was doing was annoying people around me. I mean, who wanted to listen to that crap? Who wanted to be around Debbie Downer? You know, we were away at college. We're supposed to be experiencing all these new things and living life. Who wanted to deal with my shit? Well, the person that I told actually helped me in the only way she knew how, and she called the police. And they all showed up into my dorm room. There was the police, the fire department, the EMTs. I remember thinking, damn, all these hot guys in my dorm room, and I'm going to be dying soon. They got me to the hospital, and the hospital contacted my counselor. I started back on my meds and counseling again. And I can still look back on that pain like it was just yesterday. I was so confused. I was so scared. I was so worried that I would have to do this forever and I would carry this crazy label with me for the rest of my life. I didn't know any other way than just to push through by myself, be independent, persevere, be resilient. So that's what I did. I've been on various meds over the years because they don't last forever, so you have to switch them up occasionally. I absolutely loathe this process. Anyone who has mental health issues can relate. Adjusting meds is an awful, awful process because it deals with the chemistry in your brain. Some of the meds are so bad. Last time I was hospitalized, they started me on something. It was one of those antidepressant medicines that go with your antidepressant medicine to make your antidepressant medicine work better. I called it Satan's candy. It was awful. It would cause these involuntary muscle contractions in my neck and shoulders where I would go like that and my head would flip back, and I felt like I was about to have a stroke. Now, I don't have any idea what a stroke feels like, but that's the only way I can describe it. And once I told my counselor that this was happening and that I felt like I was going to have a stroke, she knew exactly what was wrong with me. And we got me off Satan's candy. I think the worst med that I was ever on was Paxil. Paxil was the worst for me. That was in the mid-90s. I gained over 50 pounds. I had no sex drive. And it gave me the zaps, right, in my brain. I would describe the zaps to my doctor, and he would look at me like I was really crazy. There's no zaps. I don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. And later, so many people complained about it that it was a side effect of Paxil, and it was finally put on the packaging. So, I was validated. The zaps are real. And ironically, I'm back on Prozac now at this time in my life. So my first med is actually what I'm on now. My anxiety and depression are managed with little to no side effects at this time. I'm still very actively working on my mental health every single day. Every single day, I check in with myself to make sure that I'm on the right track. Currently, I'm laid off, and there's other challenges that are going on in my life, but I take my meds. In the last 15 years, I've been hospitalized twice for anxiety and depression. And even though it was so scary to go, it helped me so much. I was nurtured there and I was educated. I was pulled out of this false narrative that I had created about myself. And I was shown what my reality really was. I'm a good person. I'm worthy of love. I may feel like a burden, but I'm not. I learned coping skills and why I did the things I did. I was with other people that were just like me, that were going through much the same journey that I was. Here's the thing to remember, everyone. Anxiety is a bitch and depression is an asshole. They lie. They lie so bad. They manipulate. They are so good at finding your weaknesses and pushing those buttons to make you feel like you're an unworthy, unlovable burden that will never be happy again. They take you out of your reality and put you in one that is full of lies, fear, and pain. That is their only job, and they do it well. I know that I have to be active in my mental health for the rest of my life. The thing is I want to now. I finally feel like I know what it means when people say life is good. I finally understand it. So I want to keep doing it. I say that I live with depression and anxiety, not suffer from it. Because for me, embracing the bad thing instead of constantly fighting it has made all the difference. When you spend all of your energy fighting your mental health issues, it can feel like you're in this never-ending battle with yourself, which only adds to the stress and exhaustion. By embracing my anxiety and depression, I've learned to accept that they are a part of who I am. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm giving up or letting them control my life. Instead, it means I'm acknowledging their presence. They're here. And understanding it's okay to have these feelings. It's about being kind to myself and recognizing that I'm doing the best that I can. When you accept that anxiety and depression are a part of your journey, you can start to work with them rather than against them. This shift in perspective allows you to focus on managing your symptoms and finding ways to live a fulfilling life despite them. It means practicing self-care, seeking support when you need it, and giving yourself permission to have bad days without feeling like you're a failure. Living with anxiety and depression means incorporating coping strategies into your daily routine. It means knowing your triggers and having a plan to deal with them. Having a plan is so important because when you're in that time of flailing and panic and anxiousness, you won't remember what the plan is. So have it, write it down, put it in a folder, put it on a sticky note, put your plan someplace where when you start struggling, when you become in crisis, you can see it. Build a toolkit of resources. Now, whether that's therapy, medication, exercise, mindfulness, or a combination of everything, you need to find out what works for you to help you navigate through the tough times. When you stop viewing your mental health as an enemy to be defeated and start seeing it as a part of your life that you can manage, it becomes less overwhelming. It's still freaking overwhelming, I'm not going to lie. It's about finding a balance and recognizing that you're not defined by your anxiety or depression. You are defined by how you choose to live with them. My childhood was incredibly tough, and it did a lot of damage to me, and that's a story for another day and another video. But the diagnosis and treatment of anxiety and depression were pivotal moments for me. That one person that finally understood what was going on and took the time with me instead of being dismissive made all the difference in the world. Reflecting on these experiences and the experiences that I've had throughout my life, I see them as integral parts of my journey that have taught me resilience and perseverance. If you are in crisis right now and if you're feeling bad, you don't have to feel this way. You don't. As insurmountable as it feels, get help. Get support. You're not alone. If you're supporting someone with mental health issues, you can make a difference and you do make a difference. Thank you for being there for your person. You are an amazing human. Continue to listen and validate your person. Just being there without judgment is the world. Encourage your person to get help. There's really honestly so much that you can do. You shouldn't be responsible for someone else's mental health. Help them find someone and make an appointment. I look back and think of all the things that I would have missed had I been successful at killing myself with all of the times that I had planned it. I would have missed so much. I would have missed so much. And people would have missed me even if they didn't know they were missing me. My little corner of the world would have been forever changed. There would be a space where I was supposed to be, where I was supposed to be living and making a difference. There would just be a hole there. So through therapy, meds, and sheer persistence, I have found my way. Now this is a little roller coastery. But at this point in my life, I know that if I go back in crisis, I know what to do. I've got tools, I've got skills, I know who to call, I know how to cope, I know when it's gone too deep, I know when to say I need help. That's the hardest thing in the world. Thank you for being here for me, and thank you for listening to my journey. This was a difficult video to make. So take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.